Hi, I'm Betsy Payne Cook, and I'm going to go over a little bit about pastels for beginners. And this is a supplement to my classes that I teach so that artists that are new to pastels have the ability to look at a demo, see the different types of mark making that you can make with pastels, and find out a little bit about hard and soft pastels. So I'm using 2 sheets of Art Spectrum sanded board. The sanded papers wind up having a lot of grit or tooth so that it actually hangs onto the pastel as you apply it. You can get multiple layers. It's fabulous. There are other products on the market that are not sanded that are good. But it is a matter of becoming familiar with your surface or your board that you're working on to find out how many layers you can put on, because you don't want to have the pastel fall off. I do not use workable fixative. I sometimes use it towards the end if I've used a lot of layers, but I prefer to use a surface that actually will hold on to the pastel. Value bar is handy to have so that you can identify your colors, whether they're light, medium, or dark value. And I have a variety of different pastels down here, but I'm going to start by just showing you a little bit about a hard pastel. Hard pastel lives up to its name. It feels hard, it looks hard. This is a new pastel, comes in a whole variety of different colors. This is a fairly new stick, so this is about the size it is. There are a lot of brands that I'm unfamiliar with that maybe you buy in, Job Lot or, Christmas tree shops if you're from the Cape. It's really all about the color fastness, so the cheaper pastels will not hold the color for as long. And the biggest difference between hard and soft pastel is there's more binding agent in a hard pastel, and there's less binding agent and more pigment, dry pigment, in the softer pastels. If you're buying chalk, it's really just dyed. It doesn't have any actual pigment, pure pigment in it. Okay, so hard pastel. I'm going to do a couple with linear mark making. Linear mark making, we can use the tip, and we can press down hard and we can get a nice bold line. We can press down softly. We can get a softer, you can see the difference with that. You can use the side. You can cover a larger area. You can use a more pressure, and you can go back, and you can really create a difference in value. It's brighter. And part of this is because I'm using the black paper so that the colors really show up for you. So that black underneath, it's showing through here because I pressed down softly, which means that black changes the color of this pastel. What you can do besides using just your tip or just your side is to create marks. So one of the types of marks is your cross hatching. Okay, and I can press harder and I can get them closer together. I can move them farther apart, and I can press lighter. And what happens is I wind up creating a variation just by the pressure that I've used. That's hatching. Cross hatching means we come in at another angle. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come in pressing hard. I'm going to press light. I get a nice variation. I mean, you can do this really systematic and very straight, or you can do it just really totally randomly. Hard pastel, you're not going to get as much dust flying around as you would with soft pastel. I can come in here. The more I cover up that black, the more this is going to appear yellow. And I can just keep coming in and going back and forth and back and forth. I can even change my color. So I've got an orange here, another orange pastel. So right now we're feeling very yellow. So now let's change this up a bit. I've got these farther apart and a lot of pressure. I'm going to come in, soft pressure. I'm going to put them fairly close together, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to go in the other direction. Actually, when you do this with a soft pastel underneath, you get this nice little draggy line. You can see I've got the orange on top. I can still see the yellow below. let's say I want to get rid of that yellow. I can just take and I can make a very hard mark. So what happens is that yellow disappears. This is really just a lot of fun just to play with. Now I can take the two warm colors here next to each other on the color wheel. I'm going to bring in a blue. It's a cooler color and same sort of thing. So now besides just changing the color starts to alter. If you know your color wheel, yellow and blue make a green. So this is really altering that yellow. So it's beginning to take on a little bit of an optical view of a green. Okay, a nice bluish green there. And again, if I wanted to come in and let's say obliterate something, I could just take and do a nice side mark and I can just get rid of that altogether. Come around, change the angle that you're doing. I did most of these with the tip and the side. Another thing you can do is a squiggle. And it's amazing where you wind up doing squiggles. We're going to do the same colors. I'm going to start with the darker color first. Okay? And again, same idea. The farther apart my squiggly lines go, the more it shows the black, which means it remains a darker appearance. I come in and I start, this is a lovely textural quality. Really good for almost anything. Nice random mark. So the more I fill this in with the blue, the more I'm going to get the appearance of blue, the color blue with a little bit of the black showing through. Going to come in with the yellow. Let's say I want to lighten up this area. I don't want to lighten it up with more blue over here. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to squiggle on top. I've got that same sort of thing that's going to happen. Going to get little optical, and I say optical blending because it means I'm not actually coming in here and mushing the colors together to make a green, but optically, if we looked at it from a distance, it would take on a greenish cast. And I can put these all close together here. And the blue is going to take over that yellow. I'm pressing harder, and I'm making squiggles that are all closer together. This is, what's a really nice exercise is to take an object like a circle or a sphere and see if you can actually alter it so one side looks as though it's actually catching the light and the other side is not. Say I want to mute something down. Again, we go back to that. The opposite of blue is orange. These are fairly close in value. And I can come in here and I can pull that orange over that blue. And it's going to look very different than if I just pull this orange over the yellow. Okay, you make two very different appearances in how that looks. Pastels really is all about layering. It's very therapeutic, by the way. Okay, the next one is pointillism. Pointillism is a little bit, specific to what it is you're trying to do. Okay, so I'm making a whole lot of small points. And this is one reason is because I'm using a hard pastel. And the hard pastels that I have are all small tip. So, the more I put them together, the more yellow this area feels because I am covering up the black. I keep them farther apart, the darker and it feels. So let's bring in some orange and you just do the same sort of thing, dots. Want to leave that paper, that works out great. Change it so it looks more orangey. I put more little dots in here. I have a tendency when I do this one is to go into a squiggle really quickly. So anyway, I'm just trying to make dots, not squiggles. Okay, and I can do the same with the blue. And I can just come in with dots. And I want this to look very blue down here, so I'm just making lots of blue dots that are going to fill up that dark area. And think as if you were really, I'm going to try to make this light over here. Think as if you were making something with a lot of texture. You had floral scene you were doing. Those little dots really work out nice. And that you can see all three of them. There's been a change to the color. So we had cross hatching, we had squiggles, and we had pointillism. We can use the tip or we can use the side. We can press hard, we can press soft. The other one is painterly marks. And I'm going to use soft pastels for this. And for the soft pastel, again, I'm going to start with a darker color underneath. We can press hard so that we totally fill that surface. We can press soft so that some of that darker surface shows through. Okay, you can use the tips on this too. Same sort of thing. If I wanted to come in, I could do this feathering technique where I'm actually making lots of little marks like this, back and forth. And painterly, I refer to it as painterly strokes, and I use that term because other artists that use brushes would use different size brushes. They would use different types of brushes. They would use palette knives. What pastelists can do is we can use the different types of soft pastels and hard pastels to just change up what we're doing. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to just lighten that up. So I've just dragged it. I can still see that violet that's underneath it, the darker violet. I get this really love soft gradation, just really softer and softer and softer, just to change it a little harder here. So I've kind of covered up. I haven't totally obliterated what's underneath because you can still see that darker violet that's underneath here. So I want to come in and I want to give a little texture to an area. I can do the same sort of thing using my side of my pastel. I can make this kind of mark. I can come in with a different type of pastel. Okay, and this one's a little more rounder. Okay, I tend to hold it like that. And see, the shape of this mark making is different than the first one. So you want to practice with the pastels that you have to see what kind of marks the different sizes and the different whether they're a square or a circle. Let's bring in a little green. I'm looking for one that's a little square. I thought I pulled one out, so let me come on over here. Okay, here's a yellow one. And I use Swiffers to clean my pastel, and they work out really well. You can keep your pastels in cornmeal. That'll help keep them clean, but you want to definitely test your pastel. So this one's lighter. So I've started with dark. I went to like these medium lights. I'm going to go to super light. So this one has a very square edge. The other two are rounded. So I got a real nice mark, and I can make little small marks here. I can take and I can put it towards the front, and I can make this kind of mark. You get a kind of little unusual mark when you do that, because typically the edges on the long side, or on the short side I should say, aren't as worn down. So let's say I'm going to bring this in and make a couple of little marks in here. I'm going to come back. So these really little chunky, maybe make some big marks in here. You can still see that orange underneath. Now what's interesting with this one is, if you know your color wheel, the opposite of yellow is violet. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to put this down here. Since I pulled this yellow out, I might as well show you. If I take that and I drag that over here, I'm kind of neutralizing my yellow. Okay, if I drag it here, you can see it's brighter. But I'm dragging this through a violet, so it's actually changing the appearance of it. Let me take another violet that's a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to come back and I'm going to do some little side strokes here. So now I've changed that yellow even more. Great way of giving texture to your painting without going crazy. Let's just bring this little bright color up here on the side. We're going to drag it down. We can leave as much as that yellow showing. Let's say I want to get in there. I want to get that brighter. Okay. And then I can come back in and I can just almost like scribble through that. Soft pastels, they're going to blend a little bit easier. But let's say they're not blending as easy as you thought. What I can do is I can take, this is a hard pastel, and it's yellow, same value as that, and I can just come through, and this is that feathering again, and I can make this little, almost like I'm doing this little hatching. It's called feathering, and what happens is because these two pastels are both soft, and this is a hard pastel is blending better than your finger, blending, and you keep the color, and it's beautiful. So now I have this lovely appearance of, too bad I didn't make that a little bit bigger, lovely appearance of this yellow that is just merging into the peach or the coral. And if I want to bring that color back up again, I can just come back in. Okay, so with the scumbling is when we're actually applying lots of layers on top. We've got our side strokes, our big fat strokes. The angle that you put this your pastel on will make a difference. I'll show you with this red here. Okay, so clean that off. I wear gloves to keep my hands relatively clean. Okay. Nice side stroke. Look at that nice straight line I got just by holding on the side. And this is a rounded pastel, so it's not like it's even a hard edge. Okay, come in. Look at that little, oops, look at, I must have a piece of tape or something underneath. This did not, this is, I can feel it underneath. So there's a good point. Always check that your board you're putting these things on, these papers on, is smooth. And that's a really good reason not to use corrugated cardboard, because the thinner your paper is, the more that corrugated cardboard design is going to show through. Now, it's great if you want that to show, but if you don't, make sure that you avoid that. Foam core, matting board, any of those are great. Okay, so I'm going to take and I'm going to start changing this. And I might as well do it down here, and I'm going to just use this little sideways stroke, and I'm going to make the bottom a little bit lighter. Remember, I put down a darker red first, and now I've got like a medium, and I'm going to put them farther apart. Think of that same thing you did over here. Farther apart, and more of that red shows through. I can come back in with the coral, which is even lighter than that. Here, let me put this one down so you can see. That's that one, and here's your coral. Okay, slightly lighter. If I do that in a gradual way, I can go back and forth, change that brilliant red, and look at, I'm just going back and forth. And let me get one that's even lighter. Oh, this is nice. I like this. Let's see. Oh, this is where we test. Look at that. It's not light enough. Okay, let's test this. Okay, that's definitely light. This is a Girault. They are actually a soft pastel. They have more the appearance of a hard pastel because they're long and skinny. Okay, and I can get that even lighter just by going back and forth. And this is a much nicer way of creating. Let's put a nice line right here so you can see the color that is. It almost takes on a white, but it's really a pink. Let me show you what a white looks like. There's white. Okay, look at the difference in that. And that's why these value bars are so helpful. One thing you can do is to actually just play with the mark making. You can read about pastels, look at pastels, but until you actually get a sheet of paper and practice with both hard and soft pastels, you're not going to understand, well, you'll understand, but you're not going to actually realize the difference between the types of marks you can make with both of them. I'm just going to go back to the feathering, and I am going to take this, which is fairly close in color. There's that. This is fairly close in color and in value. Soft, hard. If I want to do a little bit blending rather than getting in, look, if I get in there and mush it with my finger, all I do is make I just smooth everything out. And when you smooth it out, you don't get those lovely, luminous colors and layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I can do the same sort of thing, only I'm going to do that feathering again. And I'm going to come back in, and I am just going to keep going back and forth and back and forth. And because what's underneath it is soft and what I'm putting on top is hard, this acts as a blending tool. And truthfully, I would recommend just practicing that feathering, because it is a really, really nice way to blend without obliterating those layers, because those layers still exist. I can still see them, and I can just keep going as much or as little as I want. And that soft pastel underneath will move with this hard pastel on top. Hopefully that was helpful. I know it's very basic and short, but it's at least enough to get you going. It'll be great to see you in class, and if you've got any questions, make sure you get in touch with me. Thank you.